I pay 6 mana and cast the upside down Ace of Pentacles, which means you lose all of your money. There's gonna be like one person who gets that joke. Hey kids, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, hoping that you are having a great day. And in today's video, we are gonna be talking about comics. Comic prices, comic secondary market, comic collecting, and the fear of the comic bulk prices. All right, so before we begin, just so you guys know, I'd appreciate it very, very much if you would leave me a like down below. I've noticed in recent videos that while my views are up, thank you very much, engagement is down. So likes and comments are both down. The algorithm likes it very much when you engage with the content, and I like it very much when the algorithm stops threatening my family. So if you could do me a solid and leave a like or a comment, I'd appreciate it very much. Now, with that shameless self-shilling out of the way, let's talk about comic prices. Comic prices, and the state? No. The trend, yeah, of comic books, graded and loose. But before that really properly, when it comes to comic books versus cards, the big comparison people like to give is the big benefit people like to give to card games over comics is that in the same space it would take to store, 100 comics, you could store thousands of trading cards, right? And that is true. That is a huge benefit that trading card collectors have over comic book collectors. But the other big benefit that trading card collectors have is that at the lower price ranges, at the lower end of the collectability scale, your losses hurt a lot less. And by that I mean your price to earnings can be much more in your favor, especially with the right swings in your market. And let's look at what happens if someone would spend, all right, 2 years ago, you had $2,000 to your name, and you could have chosen to spend it on $2,000 worth of Chilling Reign. Here we go again. Chilling Reign. You could spend $2,000 on Chilling Reign boxes. Let's even assume that they were at $100 a box. So this is like, what, 3 or 4 years ago, whatever? So not 2 years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. You could have spent $2,000 on Chilling Reign, gotten yourself 20 nice Chilling Reign boxes. Okay? Boom, you're good. At that same time, you could have also chosen to take that $2,000 and gotten $2,000 worth of fresh comics. That's what? $5 a head? No, $4. Average comic $4, about $4 to $5. Depends on the store, obviously. So that's what? 500 comics around? 500 different issues? Something like that. On average, you're going to find, regardless of what you did with those sealed boxes, opening them or keeping them sealed, whatever you did, you're going to find that performed better than the random assortment of X-Men Red and X-Men Gold comics that you grabbed over the last few years with your money. And there's a few different reasons for that. The big one I will say is that the vast majority of loose comics have absolutely nothing in them that collectors or investors want, for the most part. And yes, that is true for cards too. 99% of all TCG cards individually aren't worth all that much. I know that better than most, considering I mostly sell bulk. But when it comes to the averaging out, so if you kept those boxes sealed or if you opened them up, you're going to find that you had more things in there for the price you spent that people wanted. Assuming that you grabbed random comics and assuming that you got a truly random pool of cards from your boxes if you opened them again. this thought experiment's having a lot of variables that I don't like. I'm keeping track of a few things. What I'm trying to say is, on average, if you parked 2K into random comics, or 2K into random Pokemon cards, or hell, even random Magic cards, you probably did better on your random card investment than you did on the random comic investment. And it hurts more because the individual price spent on the individual items, the comics versus the cards, it's a lot higher. 200 comics, 500 comics, whatever. Sounds like a lot. But what? Random cards, thousands of cards, honestly, thousands of individual cards. The cost average per card there is so small. It's crazy. Pennies of a penny. There's a lot of people who've been getting into comics, who got into comics during the COVID boom, or got into comics over the last few years expecting that they were going to make a big bank by just buying up all the random issues they could. First appearances of random characters nobody cares about. First issues of random lines no one cares about. Or have been doing the buckshot routine of just buying up everything they can get for cheap. And over the last 6 months, you're seeing a lot of people try to cash out. They sat on their little investment for a few years, and it's coming time, and things aren't working out so well. Why is that? 2 things. There's 3 reasons, but 2 I want to talk about. I do this a lot. I say there's 2 things, but there's actually a lot more. There's actually closer to 4 reasons. We're going to keep it at 4, and then we're going to talk about 2. First, so the 4 reasons total, the hype was through the roof during COVID. The chance of making money on a random issue seemed higher than it really was. Comic collecting itself seemed higher than it really was. And there was a bit of a comic resurgence. There was the success of the Avengers films at the time. There was... How old is Invincible now? A few years, right? People got into comic collecting over that. I definitely know that for a fact. I know for a fact people got into comic collecting over Invincible. That show did amazing. But yeah, things overall seemed better than they maybe not necessarily really are, but they seemed more appealing a few years ago. It looked like it would be easier to make money. The hype was huge in the COVID era boom. Yes, it's true that hype was high for Pokemon and Magic, etc. at the time too. People were making a lot of money selling old Pokemon stuff. But the comparison is completely different. Comic books, graded comic books back in 2021 were on fire. There were so many issues that were in such high demand. It was insane. And you're finding that even last year, there was a lot of hype, a lot of intent, a lot of interest, in these older issues. And these older key issues, first appearances, etc. And in the last few months, this has died down. People have been leaving, not necessarily leaving, but they've been moving their money. They've been moving their money elsewhere. They've been selling their collectibles, their collections, and trying to move on with their life. And as that happens, prices come down, the hype starts to dissipate, and a lot of the demand that we were seeing during the last few years has really seemed to dry up. I could be the doomer. I could be the super doom and gloom negative Nancy about it and say that it's just because the comic industry is in a bust right now. Diamond went down, they took everyone with them, and DC and Marvel are still awful and all that jazz. But it's more complicated than that. When so many people enter into a hobby thinking that they can park their money and just wait a few years to make it big, they tend to get disappointed very easily, especially if they aren't fans of that hobby. There's a lot of people who got into comics over the last few years who don't read comics. They don't know anything about any of the characters. They don't read X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, all new Amazing Green Lantern. They don't read them. They buy them because they think they'll be worth money in a few years, and then they're disappointed in a few years when nobody wants the random issues of Green Lantern or X-Men Gold. Crazy thing, isn't it? You know? And obviously for the average comic collector, the average comic fan, nothing's really changed. They're still going to buy what they like. They're still going to enjoy what they enjoy. And they're going to move on with the world. You know, let me grab a quick issue over here. Boom, you're a great example. There's always new Conan. I love Conan. It's the only thing I keep buying. For me, nothing changes. I don't care if this Conan is $1 or $50 bazillion. I still like it. And I still read it. I still enjoy it. But if you're getting into comics, thinking that your $5 purchase of a random issue from 2021 is going to suddenly make you a multi-bazillionaire because you struck it out and found the one issue that nobody else knew was suddenly going to be worth money, you're going to be sorely disappointed. And a lot of people are learning that right now the hard way, especially when it comes to bulk selling their comics, because these people aren't just selling one or two issues trying to flip it for quick cash. They're selling their entire collections from the last few years and learning very quickly that most people don't buy bulk collections for anything better than bulk prices. And that can definitely not be great in terms of price to earnings ratio. You can lose a lot of money there. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, it's also affected graded comics. There's graded comics that have lost. There's this one channel I was watching, which was kind of the impetus of this video. The other day, he was talking about huge comic book price drops over the last 6 to 12 months from last year and the big highs. And some issues were seeing 60% declines in price, 90% declines in price in some spaces. And I thought that video was really fascinating, really interesting. I thought it was interesting because I wasn't terribly surprised, but I was surprised by the volume. I wasn't surprised that we were seeing a dip in prices, but I was terribly shocked by the percentage dips. It's always really crazy to see how much money you could lose in an instant. It's a good reminder to everyone out there who has a lot of money parked into any one asset that you shouldn't be parking a huge percentage of your money in any one asset. You should be splitting it up across multiple little nest eggs. All of your eggs in one basket, bad. Eggs in various colorful different kinds of baskets, good, in theory at least. Anywho, I don't have anything more educated or inspired or deep or meaningful to talk about today. I just wanted to talk about the fact that, yeah, there are some people who got into comics the same reason they got into card games. They were thinking they were going to make a quick buck, and it's not working out so well for them. And that's really it. I could ramble on like that for a bit, but really is the entirety of the video. If you are getting into comics if you're getting into anything just because you think you're going to make a quick buck down the road, that's a terrible reason to get into something. Get into comics, get into cards, get into video games, get into model cars, airplanes. Get into the hobbies you're getting into because you enjoy the hobby, not because you think you're going to make a quick buck. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, okay? Look at me. If you're getting into a hobby only because you think you're going to make money down the road, you will have the worst possible reason to get into that hobby. Get into a hobby that you enjoy. Make the smart decisions, do your research, and you might find that the hobbies you enjoy can be profitable down the road. But getting into a hobby just because of profit, it's not a hobby, it's a side hustle, and you're doing it wrong. That's all I got for you kids today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please if you did, share and subscribe. I'd appreciate it so very much. And yeah, that's all I got. I'll see you kids next time. obviously I dig Conan. We have so much in common. We both have hair.